Hi, my name's Phil Gardner and welcome to Fun with Boxes, where today we're taking a look at how to set up and how to play the absolutely spooky, fantastic game Spooktacular from Level 99 Games. This really is something special. A game that comes with 20 monsters for you to play, and each one plays completely differently. It's for 1 to 5 players and will take around 40 minutes to play, and it really is rather wonderful looking. So without any further ado, let's take a look at how you set up and how you play this spooky little game. Okay, the first thing we do is each player is going to select one of the 20 monsters included in the game. Now, to help you choose, they have their ratings in the bottom left hand corner there. So the recommended ones to use for your first few games are any of the easy monsters. So each player is going to select one of the monsters. So I'm going to just pick it totally at random. I'm going to pick these two monsters to play: Killer Car and What Lurks Below. Then each player takes a set of 5 basic cards, and these are identical for each player. And then we take a look at this area here, because what this is telling us, as part of our setup, we take our 5 basic cards, plus then we take the unique cards belonging to that monster. So, for example, to set up What Lurks Below, there are 5 unique cards for this monster. So we find these 5 cards and add these to their deck. And then we find the Killer Car cards, and that's 5 basic cards and 3 unique cards. So have a look through the deck, find the 3 unique cards. Obviously you're matching the artwork up there when you're looking for them, and add these to their deck. Now, also noted on the setup for each of the monsters will be the monster playing piece. So make sure you select the piece required. Now, there may be some other tokens that are required, so check your monster very carefully. For example, Doombox here, you would find the Doombox monster token, but then you would also find 5 cassettes that you'll be using on a track on this board. Now, these 2 boards don't have any extra tokens, so that's good. So we've got their deck of cards ready, we've got their components ready, and what each player would simply do is, of course, give your deck of cards a good old shuffle. Now, this deck of cards is not going to change during the game, or at least the games we've played, this hasn't occurred. So you'll be cycling through these cards. So each player will shuffle their individual deck of cards. And now we're ready to place the map board out. And the first thing we need to do is place locks on rooms, and this depends on the player count. Check each of the rooms to see if it has this X icon and the number of players. So we're setting up a 2-player game. So here this is saying to place a block token here because we're playing with 2 to 4 players. This room here says to block this room if playing with only 2 players. And finally, this room here, if you're playing 2 to 3 players, you would block off this room. And then the game suggests then that each player names their favourite horror movie, and the one who names the best movie is the first player. Or of course you could pick via any method you choose. And then we assign each player a score tracker based on their seating position from the first player and put it on the score track at number 10. So we're setting up a 2-player game. So we select the first player and the second player, and we would pop these onto space number 10 on the score track, and then give each player one of their tokens as a reference so everybody's aware. So player 1, for example, maybe here, and player 2 here. Then you take all the cinema tickets, the Spooktacular tickets, make a pile of them, shuffle them all up, and then pick 2 for every player in the game. So we're setting up a 2-player game, so we would pick, for example, 2 for me and 2 for my opponent, and discard the rest. Then keep these in a face down pile next to the board. Next you will take your Spooktacular bag, and into your bag you add all the guest meeples. Now please do note that you do not put the white meeples into this bag. They are for a certain monster, so you just put all the standard guest meeples into your Spooktacular bag and keep that within easy reach of all players. Now, what we're going to do to set up the game board is we're going to fill the cinema with guests. So we can add guests to every room that is not blocked. So in a 2-player game, we are not going to add any guests to these rooms. And what we're going to do is we can add a number of guests equal to the number of doors that are in the room minus 1. So we can see this room here has got 1, 2, 3 doors. And you'll see up in the top right hand corner, it's got a little symbol there which reminds you that it's 3 doors. This room, for example, has 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice there's a little symbol there to remind you there are 4 rooms, so you don't have to count. You can just check here. This room here has 7 doors. So you would just randomly go into your bag. This room has 3 doors, so we put 2 guests in there. This room has 3 doors, we put 2 guests in here. 3 guests in here. This room is 4. This room is a 5-door room, so we put 4 in, and this room we will put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guests in because it's a 7-door room. And then set the bag down again in easy reach of all players. And now, starting with the first player and going clockwise around the table, each player will follow their individual monster's setup steps. So for example, as part of my setup here, I placed the listener into any room. So I could pop the listener into here, for example. And then I would draw from my deck of cards that I've shuffled earlier, I would draw 3 cards. And that's this setup complete. If we take a look at the killer car player setup, they place a car into any room. So they may place their car here, and then they would draw 3 cards too. And that's their setup complete. Now, each monster is very different and could come with a number of tokens, and you simply follow the setup instructions that are on that card, placing your tokens as required on your monsters and drawing any cards that it tells you to draw. And with that, your game is set up and you're ready to play. Okay, so how do we play well? Spooktacular is played over a series of rounds where each player is going to take a turn. And what each player will be doing on their turn is following the turn steps on their player board. So you don't have to worry about remembering what order to do things in or what you have to do, because every monster has a player card that will tell you everything you need for that monster. So the killer car player would go through these turn steps. They would play a card, pick up a passenger, move, and then draw back to 3 cards. And this area here explains what pick up a passenger. When that player has taken their turn, the next player takes their turn. So for example here, what lurks below, they'll be playing a card from their hand, playing another card from their hand, moving, and then drawing back to 3 cards. And then that's their turn over, and on to the next player, and continuing until the game end is triggered. Now the game end triggers when either of these conditions are met. One player reaches 50 or more points, or all the tickets from the supply have been taken. So on your player turn, you're going to be playing cards, adding guests, moving, spooking, devouring, and interacting with your monster's unique abilities. And on each turn, you're trying to score the most points you can. So let's take a look at each of the basic cards here. Remember, these are the same for all players. So one of the 5 basic starting cards is Haunt. And this tells you to spook and then spook again. Now, spooking is one of the main ways to score points. And when you spook your room, for each door, you would move a guest out of that door and into a connected room and count how many guests move through the doors and score 1 point for each guest moved. So using the listener as an example, we could spook this person through this door, and I'll leave them there just to see. That person there, this person here, 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 and here. So that would mean I've cleared the room there because there are 6 exits. In fact, there's 7 doors in this room. But at setup, we've only got 6 guests in the room. So there may well be a larger number of guests in the room than there are doors as you play the game. But at the start of the game, if I was to spook these, then they would all go into these rooms. And because I've spooked 6 guests, then I would get 6 points. Now the card says to then spook again. Now I can't spook again because there are no other guests in the room with me. I've already spooked and scared them away. But if there had been multiple guests in this room, it would allow me, after spooking the first guests out, it would allow me to spook more guests out, depending on the number of doors and the number of guests left in the room. So that's the spook and then spook again. Now we have jump scare. Now jump scare tells you to move. So you can move through any door into a connected room. You cannot, if I was in this room, you cannot move into the rooms that are blocked, but you can freely move into any room that's connected by a door. So for example, if I was here, I could move into here, and then I get to play another card. So you simply play another card from your hand. So the next card we're going to take a look at is Search. And Search tells you to add 3 guests and play a card. So to add 3 guests, you would get your Spooktacular guest bag and you would take 3 guests out and add them to the room you were in. Simple as that. And then you get to play another card. So on to now Consume. Devour a guest of each colour. Now devouring is another way to gain points. When you devour a guest in your room, you set it to one side of your board in what we will call your devour pile. And unless otherwise stated, effects that devour only devour in the room you are in. Now this one says that I would get to devour a guest of each colour. So I could devour this guest, this guest, this guest, and this guest. So I devoured 4 guests in one go. So I would take these and I would put them to one side next to my player board. And that's your Consume. Now you could have different card effects that will tell you to consume 1 guest or more guests. It all depends on what cards you're playing and what cards are in your unique abilities. Now with Devour, if you have a guest of each colour in your Devour pile, then you return them to the bag and get a ticket. So for example, if I had managed on a later turn to devour this yellow guest, I've now got a set of all 5 guest colours. So what I would simply do is I would return these to the bag and then take one of these tokens at random, and I would place this next to my board, keeping it face down, and nobody may look at it until the game ends. As soon as you've collected a ticket, you can see on the back of the ticket it's got a plus symbol and 3 guest meeple shapes. So what that is telling you to do is, as soon as you get a ticket, you must take 3 more guests from the bag and add them to a room that's got the least number of guests. Now, in this example, these 2 rooms only have 2 guests in, so these have the least number of guests. So if there was 3 in this one and only 2 in this one, well, we would add 3 into this room. However, if 2 or more rooms have the least figures, then you get to choose which room to put them in. So for example, I could choose to put them into my room instead. Now finally we come to mash. Now mash tells you to move all monsters in your room, and you will gain 2 points per player moved. So if I was in this room, for example, what I could do is I could move this player's monster into this room, and because I've moved that player's monster, I'm going to gain 2 points. 1, 2. Now playing a card, to play a card, you would do the effect on the card and then discard it. And if you ever run out of cards and you need to draw a new one, you would shuffle your discard back into your deck and then draw. So let's take a look at the unique abilities of what lurks below here. And they are cards, there's a bump card, so I can move a figure from a connected room into my room. So for example, I could pull this guest into this room and then I would get to draw a card. We have nudge, where I could move a figure in my room. So you would move a figure in your room, out of your room to an adjacent room, and then I would get to draw a card. I could move and draw a card, or I could devour 3 times. So that would allow me to devour, say, 1, 2, 3. And what I would have to do then is discard all my hand, reshuffle it all up, and then draw a card. And finally, they have a listen card, which allows them to steal 3 points from a player in your room. So if I was in a room with this player, I could steal 3 points from them. And like I say, each monster all have different types of cards and different types of abilities. And the key to the game is using your cards to interact with the board and the other players and the guests in order to get the most points you can every turn. So finally, let's take a look at the killer card ones. So this card Get In allows you to pick up a passenger, and when you pick up a passenger, what you would do is you would pop it onto one area on your player board that matches the colour of the passenger you picked up. So if I picked up this yellow guest, then I could move and then devour. Whereas if I picked up the green guest instead, I could place my car into any room, and so on. Mow Down allows you to move all figures in your room through a single door and gain 1 point per figure moved. So if you were here, you could force all these guests into this room and you score 1 point for each guest moved. And here with Overdrive, you get to move and play a card. Now the game end. As soon as any player reaches 50 points, or if there are no more tickets to take, then this will signal the end of the game. And you will finish the round with the current turn player and any remaining players left taking their turns. And all players gain points equal to the points showing on any tickets they may have, and the player with the most points on the score track then is the winner. And if players tie, the player with the most tickets wins. And if players are still tied, then the players will share the victory. So just for example, you can see each of the tickets is going to have a random number on them. Obviously, the more tickets you collect, the more points you're going to get at the end of the game. When the game is ending, it's possible that someone may devour guests that will enable them to pick up and collect a ticket. Now, if there are no tickets left in the pile to pick up, then that player would score 5 points instead. And that's it. That's how you play a game of Spooktacular. Now, there's a solo mode included where you can challenge an automated Killtron with a modified set of rules here. Now, what is interesting with this is if you were playing a game with 4 or less players, you can add Auto Killtron into the game and it will play as an additional player. So if you're playing a 2-player game, you could play as 3 players by using Auto Killtron to really change things up for the 2 players. And there you go. That's how you play Spooktacular. Well, there you go. An absolutely cracking game. Boy, do you get a lot of content with this. Wow, you certainly do. Player beware, you do the scare. And this is a game that crams a load of content into it because you have 20 monsters to play and they each play completely differently to the others. It will take you many plays just to get used to the way some of these monsters work, to get them to spook and scare and devour the cinema goers and get the most points. So you're going to be trying to figure out the best way to utilize each monster's specific skills to be able to manipulate the map and the other players and the guests in theatre to make sure you get to win the game. It really is fantastic, and we've only just started to scratch the surface, so I can't wait to get into the more advanced monsters as well and just see how they change up the game. Spooktacular is just a fantastic game. It really is, and it fully deserves a big Fun with Boxes thumbs up from me. This is one that's going to be coming to the table for quite some time to come. And once again, I would like to thank Level 99 Games for providing us with a copy of this rather wonderful game. We truly are very grateful indeed. Well, I do hope you enjoyed taking a look at this with me. If you did, please consider hitting the old like button, and please also click that subscribe button if you would be so kind, because that really will help to grow the channel. And in the meantime, as always, thanks so much for watching. Please do take care, and bye for now.